Rights was making his speech, we had Honorable Philip Agbese, Deputy Chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Media and Publicity. He is representing the Deputy Speaker, House of Representatives, Right Honorable Benjamin Okezie-Kalu. Let's welcome him. Your Excellencies, distinguished personalities, ladies and gentlemen, may I at this point call for the keynote speaker, and that is Professor Ejoba Omorige, SAN, Director of Legislative Support Services, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic the director
towards advancing the guarantee and enjoyment of human rights in Nigeria using legislative governance as a vital instrument. On behalf of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, NILS, National Assembly, I warmly welcome all the distinguished participants to this forum. And let me give a background to the keynote speech. Human rights matters continue to be of global concern because of their universality. This accounts for the concerted international efforts at promotion, protection, and enforcement that resulted in various international instruments. In view of the significance of the human rights discourse, state parties to those international instruments have obligation to establish legislative, institutional, and policy frameworks to advance human rights within their respective jurisdictions. Nigeria has ratified and domesticated various international human rights instruments, in addition to the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, another statute aimed at guaranteeing enjoyment of human rights in Nigeria. One of the positive steps in this direction is the establishment of the National Human Rights Commission, in line with the resolution of the United Nations General Assembly, who enjoins all member states to establish independent national institution for the promotion, protection, and enforcement of human rights. The Commission serves as an extrajudicial mechanism of securing respect for and enjoyment of human rights using different avenues for public enlightenment, research, and dialogue, such as we're having now, to raise awareness on human rights issues, among other strategies. The establishment of the Commission as an independent human rights institution through the legislative process really brings to the fore significance of the legislator in the quest to advance human rights in Nigeria. So let's start to conceptualize the idea of human rights. Human rights are fundamental freedoms that are founded on our shared humanity, and reflect the moral and normative commitments to justice, dignity, and equality. They are the inalienable entitlements that all human beings have by virtue of being human beings. The basic rationale of the inalienability of human rights is the recognition that every person is inherently valuable and worthy of respect and dignity. The fact that one is human automatically carries inherent rights, which cannot be derogated from, except as provided by law. And such rights are both naturally and legally guaranteed to human beings. Human rights protection and promotion efforts cover the actions taken by individuals, organizations, and governments to ensure that human rights are respected and upheld. Advancing human rights is a combination of promotion, protection, and enforcement efforts. Promotion covers activities targeted at creating awareness of human rights and encouraging their implementation, while protection and enforcement cover measures put in place to prevent human rights violations, in addition to the provision of remedies for victims of human rights violation. Now let's look at the legislature and human rights, which is the core basis of our being here. In addition to the role which are required to be played by stakeholders, the legislature in particular, as a key branch of democratic government, has a major role to play in advancing human rights, using its tripartite powers of representation, lawmaking, and oversight. The legislature comprises the elected representative of the people, which is empowered to enact laws and ensure that those laws are complied with, using the broad powers of representation, lawmaking, and oversight. The legislature is well positioned to advance human rights by speaking up on behalf of the people against violations of human rights, by passing laws which strengthen those rights and making sure that those rights are being respected, or investigating reported or even unreported cases of human rights violations, with the view to taking appropriate remedial action, including improving on the existing legal guarantees if found inadequate. Now let's address the issue more specifically. We have already established that the legislature has three major parts, and that is representation, lawmaking, and oversight. So we'll take each of them seriously. So I address legislative representation and human rights advancement. And from a historical point of view, the entrenchment of fundamental rights provisions in Nigeria's constitutional framework at the point of departure of the British colonial government under the Independence Constitution of 1960 was inspired by the need to dispel any fear of oppression of the people in the absence of such rights being guaranteed and included in the Constitution. One of the core functions of the legislature is representation. The legislative institution is a system through which the people and their interests are represented and realized. The legislature represents different groups and constituencies. This greatly influences their choices and actions. So on the basis of this power, the legislators move motions to advance the interests of their constituents, including addressing cases of human rights violation. Such motions could include some of the issues that form the focus of violations by all kinds of individuals, including, in fact, law enforcement agents. These motions and public petitions can cover all the rights guaranteed in the sections of the Constitution relevant to human rights, which is section 33 to 44 of the Constitution. And we're not talking about lawmaking and human rights advancement. Pursuant to its powers under section 4 of the Constitution, the legislature is empowered to make laws for the advancement of human rights, among others, of course. Such legislative intervention may include the alteration of the Constitution to further guarantee more rights than the 12 human rights which are currently listed and guaranteed in section 33 to 44 of the 4th chapter of the Constitution. You know all the rights that are listed there: the right to life, the right to dignity of the human person, the right to personal liberty, the right to fair hearing, the right to private and family life, the right to freedom of thought, the right to conscience and religion, the right to freedom of expression and the press, the right to peaceful assembly and association, the right to freedom of movement, the right to freedom from discrimination, the right to acquire an immovable property, the right to prompt payment of compensation upon lawful acquisition of immovable property by government. Our point is that, in addition to, of course, the guarantees already established in the Constitution, 12 of them, the legislature can actually alter the Constitution to include more of those rights, and we have a number of them. Some of them you have in some other jurisdictions, like the right to, adequate healthcare, for instance. The legislature may also exercise the three powers to enact legislation, which creates institutions that are empowered to advance human rights. It is in this context that the National Assembly enacted the National Human Rights Commission Act, Amendment Act of 2011, which mandates the Commission to undertake human rights protection and promotion activities such as the present forum. The National Assembly has exercised part of lawmaking to advance human rights through many other legislative interventions, such as the promulgation of the Child Rights Act of 2003, Freedom of Information Act of 2011, which advances the right to freedom of expression even more, and the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015, and more recently, Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act of 2018, among others. So let's specifically address domestication of human rights instruments. I know that this period is when the United Nations actually gives attention to human rights promotion efforts. So let's address the domestication efforts that Nigeria can also do. In its preamble, the National Human Rights Commission Act affirms that the Commission is established to facilitate Nigeria's implementation of the various treaty obligations, including but not limited to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Under Section 12(1) of the Constitution, no treaty between the Federation and any other country shall have the force of law, except to the extent the treaty has been enacted into law by the National Assembly. This signifies the significance of the lawmaking role of the legislature to advance human rights in Nigeria, including those arising from treaty obligations. Some of the international and regional human rights instruments domesticated by Nigeria already include the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the African Charter on Rights and Women and Welfare of Women in Africa, the so-called Maputo Protocol, then the African Charter on Rights and Welfare of the Child, provisions of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which have been included, of course, in the Human Rights Act of 2003. I go for that to address the power of oversight of the legislature. The legislature also exercises power of oversight through which government is held accountable to the citizens. The Constitution vests the legislature with oversight powers over the executive arm of government. The oversight powers are vested in the legislature as a fundamental principle of separation of powers and the checks and balances that go pari passu. This important power is intended to underscore the sanctity of the state powers of representation and lawmaking to ensure that those powers, this power of oversight is performed within the framework of the committee system. The state committees are small groups or subdivisions of the legislative time of the state to examine matters more closely than could ordinarily be done at plenary. The committee system is a major feature of the Nigerian legislature, as the bulk of the city business in the legislature is performed at the various committees. The power of oversight can be effectively deployed to investigate compliance with legislation passed by the legislature to advance human rights. An example is the VAPA, which has a reporting system, and the oversight function can actually cover all that. Because VAPA is now about 5 years old, and it's time now for actually, let's say, post-legislative scrutiny, and so the legislature can actually do that. Now, I address the challenges that normally confront the legislature in this regard. The role of the legislature in advancing human rights in any democracy requires constant evaluation and improvement. This is particularly true in a maturing democracy like that of Nigeria, with all its fits and starts and threads of democratic backsliding. The legislature is plagued by a legion of challenges. Performance of its function. Some of the norms that of post-legislation have not been evaluated. Performing resource constraint over the state. We have a situation where over 70% of those who were in night assembly are not in state assembly. So that's a challenge. Among many other problems, which have effect various in various in human rights matters. Why these challenges cannot be active steps so that human rights guarantees critical forum is one of such common engage on finding better ways towards prosperity of talks, on tackling many outstanding issues of human rights which require legislative action. One of such pending issues is the need to domesticate the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, otherwise known popularly as to domesticate CEDAW. For 4 decades since it came into force, the treaty is a major query the extent of Nigeria's commitment to women's rights protection. So this forum is a further opportunity to critically address the concerns which have made domestication of the convention difficult to achieve after so many years. I'll conclude now. The role of the legislator in advancing human rights cannot be overstated. With frequent legislative engagements and collaboration with stakeholders, the orientation of the citizenry and law enforcement agencies particularly, and the efficient utilization of resources appropriated by the legislator to promote, protect, and enforce human rights in Nigeria, human rights and advancement efforts will be strengthened. This forum is therefore a huge step in the right direction, which must be sustained. This forum is therefore a huge step that must be sustained. The combined actions of the legislature, the National Human Rights Commission, and other critical stakeholders in the human rights community will further advance the constitutional and statutory guarantees of human rights in Nigeria. While thanking you for your kind attention, I wish all participants fruitful deliberation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Please, it deserves another round of applause. What do you expect when people like this speak? There was a pin drop silence, rapt attention from everywhere. He's not only a professor, he's not only a senior advocate of Nigeria, he is a director of legislative support services, not in an ordinary institute, but a National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. Thank you, sir, for a well-researched paper. Thank you so very much. We appreciate it. When he was making his statement, we have 2 very, very important dignitaries that stepped into the hall. I want to start by recognizing the presence of the NBA president, Yunusa Chinoko Michael SAN. Please let's put our hands together for him. We also have our very own former member, Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission, and former AG of Ekiti State, Mr. Olawale Fapounda SAN. Please let's welcome him. Thank you for being part of this all-encompassing event. I would like at this point to invite Thank you, Mr. Hilary. I had just told me that the NBA president to give us a good message, but we just allow him to. For you, may I invite Esquire from Kebbi State House of Assembly representative.
Has already delivered his message. But because I'm also standing as a representative of the Speaker, Kebbi State House of Assembly, I feel have double up and speak. Actually, this forum is a very commendable effort by the National Human Rights Commission and also the National Assembly, the Chairman House Committee on Human Rights, and both the committees. And I also have to recognize the Senate committee who is. My joy is the fact that this forum is trying as much as possible to promote human rights. And the human right is not only for women, it's also for the men. But the women are so vulnerable, they are so affected, and that's why the effort is focused children. The issue of legislation critical on the promotion and protection of human rights. I'm also standing on behalf of the entire legislative houses of Nigeria, and I want to stand before you and assure you that in legislative function, trying to promote human rights, children and women will continue and will our effort by the grace of God, because we have seen that people over our effort. We will also want to ensure you that the African Charter on Human Rights and all these are well domesticated, and we will continue. The committees on human rights, I think they have more to do, because this sensitization shall continue in the sense that our governors and our at the state level and at the lower level should also be well sensitized on the issue of promoting it and allocating resources on promotion of human rights. Currently, I got my admission to here. This is my personal commitment. I did my master's in legislative drafting in National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. So this personal commitment could not be found all over, so that there should be a deliberate effort by the National Human Rights Commission, the National Assembly committees on human rights to deliberately allocate resources in order to educate our colleagues in various stages, like the Committee on Human Rights, Committee on Justice. I am actually the chairman, House Committee on Justice and Judiciary in my state. So I would like a situation whereby few of us, either whether it is only 1 or 2 members from each state on this committee, be sponsored deliberately to educate them on what the Constitution is saying about human rights, what the international community is saying on human rights, and how do we marry them with our local situation. Because my chairman on human rights has mentioned issues that are so pertinent, so important that, but without education, without sensitization, those things are very difficult. And when we come to the issue of legislation, legislation is a specialization, it's a specialized aspect of legal profession, which, like in the National Institute for Legislative Studies, only lawyers are admitted to go on masters in legislative drafting because it is a specialization of legal profession. So when you have the basics, it is going to be very easy for you to really understand the parameters, the complexity, the issues involved in human rights as it relates to our cultural and traditional beliefs. So I don't want to talk much on this, but because my parent has already stand on me, and at the same time, my teacher, I'm so
Very much, sir. That was Honorable Justice and Judiciary. Thank you for your willingness to advance the cause of human rights through education. The President of the NBA, Yunusa Chinoko Mikel, SFN. We have a chair already prepared for you, sir. And following you closely to the high table is Mr. Olawale Papowunda, SAN, former member Governing Council, National Human Rights Commission, former Attorney General of Ekiti State. Let's keep clapping until they get their seat on the high table. Thank you. Sorry, I've just been told that your name is Yakubu Chinoko. Sorry, not Yunusa. I'm so sorry about that, sir. While they are making their way to the high table, I would like to invite while they are getting seated to catch their breath before we get a good message from them, I want to invite the representative of distinguished Senator Ireti Hiba Kingibe, chairperson, Senate Committee on Women Affairs, who is ably represented here by Ireti Daba to give us a message. Please let's appreciate her.
Good morning, everyone. Please allow me to stand on all existing protocols. I would like to thank you for this opportunity to represent the FCT Senator, Senator Kingibe. This goodwill message will focus on the bedrock of humanity, and that bedrock happens to be our children. In every cosmology, whether it's African, Oriental, or Caucasian, children are held to be life's most pleasurable treasures. In addition to the many reasons they are dear to us, they are the link to the future. Without them, the trajectory of humankind as we know it will perish. The famed Indian poet, Rabindranath Tagore, succinctly captured the indispensability of children in our world when he said, and I quote, "Every child comes with a message that God is not yet discouraged of mankind. Truly, children are the salt of the earth. They are beings close to God's heart, the inexplorable pivot, all fulcrum upon which the destiny of mankind and humanity revolves. One would think that understanding the importance of children to the sustenance of humanity would call us to the realization of the importance of children in our world. Sadly, this has not been the case. The story of our present century and the ones gone, particularly the 20th century, has been one of neglect, abuse, murder, and enslavement of children, in addition to many of the other indignities that the mind cannot conceive. Our children have become collateral damage in wars, pawns in matrimonial squabbles, objects of sexual and other forms of violence, and business exploitation, especially forced labor and child trafficking. The statistics are chilling. A recent report by the NGO Save the Children notes that 1 in 6 children in the world live in war zones, with 468 million children in 2022 alone. 2,985 children were killed in 24 countries. These are grim statistics, which, deplorable as they are, do not even begin to capture the humanitarian disaster that's killing and mistreatment of children. As noted by Save are facing unimaginable mental and physical trauma. More children are going hungry. More children are out of school. More children are at risk of sexual violence and recruitment by armed groups. And these are not mere conjecture. In the last 2 decades, we have witnessed how the insurgency in the Northeast, banditry in the Northwest, kidnappings and other forms of violence in the North Central, Southwest, South, and Southeast have either killed, maimed, or uprooted our children and their parents from their ancestral lands. It is needless to affirm that armed conflicts represent a clear and present danger in the survival and well-being of our children, and as such, humanity in general. As parents and leaders, we must reflect deeply on our roles, whether our acts of omission and commission, and how they have helped to put our children in harm's way. I am encouraged to think, looking at the distinguished gathering of civil society organizations here today, that there is hope. I have followed with satisfaction efforts made by many of you here today in holding the toes of government officials to the fire in a bid to get them to give teeth to the many international instruments on the promotion and protection of the rights of the child and as such humanity in general. More importantly, I am immensely grateful to the National Human Rights Commission for the tremendous work it has done and is doing in human rights advocacy and protection, particularly as they affect women and children. The commission, from our findings, has an active women and children's department, as well as another department for vulnerable persons, which have done a lot of work in ensuring that children, women, and the vulnerable do not have their rights willfully trampled upon by the high and mighty, or anyone for that matter. I applaud the commission and its leadership and its entire team for their interventions on behalf of children, their mothers, and all of humanity. One of the commission's projects dear to the senator's heart is the Transitional Justice Project in the Northeast, through which many children and their parents displaced by the insurgency have returned home. I thank you for the opportunity extended for the distinguished senator and this distinguished gathering. As the chairperson of the Committee on Women Affairs in the Senate, her overriding concern is to ensure that children and their mothers, and indeed women in general, are not treated in ways that debase, dehumanize, or diminish them. Under her watch, as the chairperson of the Committee of Women Affairs and as senator representing the FCC, our children will flourish. She will interface with the relevant government ministries, departments, and agencies, local and international civil societies, to arrest the growing trend of violation against children's rights and ensure that everyone, including the government and the citizenry, promote the dignity of children and humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francis Ireti Dabat. She is representing distinguished Senator Ireti Kingibe, Chairperson, Senate Committee on Women Affairs. Thank you for appreciating the work that we do. Please let's appreciate her once more. I'm sure the AGA president has caught his breath, and I would like to humbly invite him to give us a good message.
Thank you very much. When I hesitated to come up to the high table, I was actually protesting because my fundamental right had been breached in the way my name was pronounced. I thought there is no better place to speak that protest than the Commission that deals with fundamental human rights. I'm happy to be here, and I would also take the liberty to express a sentiment like my nephew also did. I'm here today by the special grace of God as president of the Nigerian Bar Association. Of course, God did it, but he used also humans who he has allowed our paths to cross to nurture us into this profession and watch us grow to the point that today we can call ourselves who we are, special grace of God. And I want to appreciate my big sister, the chair of this council, who has played that role so well in looking after us as we grew, and we are still growing in this profession. I thank you for us, and I'm sure that those of you who are here must be benefiting from those virtues that my elder sister also carried. Thank you very much, my brother, for that recognition. And my also other big brother, Professor Ujuku, thank you for the invitation extended to to come deliver a good message. And I must apologize for coming late. I had to also go to participate in another event of yet another brother of mine who is the duty of the Legal Aid Council and the transport committee. Permit me that I had to go there first because he's also from Kebbi and my brother. So, and I hope that will not be reaching any rights. The Nigerian Bar Association, like you all know, is an association of lawyers in this country, and principally our responsibility is to promote the rule of law. And implicit in that is the recognition of human rights. And so it is the core responsibility of the body that I head today by the special grace of God to do the business for which this commission is established. And that is why, in order to give expression to our understanding of that responsibility as a bar, we have set up the Human Rights Institute. And I'm aware, and I know, and I'm sure my brother, Professor Ujuku, can attest to that, that the Human Rights Institute is in active partnership and collaboration with this commission. And we can only continue to do more in order to foster that relationship for the purpose of realizing the objectives of the Nigerian Bar Association, of the commission, because we are serving the same purpose from different ends. And, in furtherance to that, we have participated in so many programs, and have also set up framework in the area of access to justice. Because without that, how do you set up, since I came on board, set up the promotion? So please tell your friends and your colleagues, anyone who has got any issue, not necessarily you want to go to court, they give you an advice that you need that would subsequently make it unnecessary for you to approach the courts. All of those things constitute avenues that we are provided to have access to justice. And here I must say that I'm happy hearing my brother speak about the legislative intervention they are doing in the National Assembly in order to give expression to human rights. Now, we do not have any option but to go that route, because number one, that we are existing today as a nation is a function of a law, which we all know as a constitution. And whatever we do is a function of law. The existence of this commission is a function of as a people. Everything that we have and can do as a people in this country have been all provided in the law. And let me say this at the risk of sounding arrogant. Only lawyers are privileged to be trained school. You cannot have better stakeholders in the business of the enforcement of what laws are provided than members of the legal profession. And I'm sorry for those of you who are not lawyers. You know, the lion, we are told, when he roars in the jungle and he announces that no matter the economy of the jungle, I will not eat grass. That it is not pride. It is just who I am. So that is who we are as lawyers. So it is not out of pride that I've said so. And that is why we are participating very actively in the process of the constitutional review. That is ongoing right now. We have received a notice from the National Assembly and the chairman of the Law Reform Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association, who is also a member of this house, and you can see the association is also deliberate about the choice of who should lead that committee. If you look at what the members of the NBA did in electing me, maybe part of what it was behind. I also had to translate that into the choice of the chairman of that committee. And I must say this for the consideration of the commission and also my nephew that is the National Assembly. You cannot tell me that I do not have the right to enforce the responsibility or the obligation on government with respect to security, or the social obligation of government with respect to the fact that I go home hungry and I cannot eat, and say that you have provided in chapter 4, so you cannot limit the things that I can do that are provided in chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Directive Principles of State Policy. I can't talk about security. And what we are dealing with as a matter of emergency in this country is the issue of security. But you and I can't go to court and hold government accountable for their failure to provide security, because it is not provided for in chapter 4. We do not have a fundamental right to go and insist that provide security for me, protect my life. Does it therefore make any sense that you have provided a right to life in chapter 4? When I cannot say that you are not doing anything to protect me from dying, but you are telling, in the process of taking away my life, I am subjected to all manner of inhuman treatment. My dignity is taken away, my freedom is taken away. But you know, in chapter 4, we have a provision for right to dignity, rights to our freedom. But all of these things are taken away in the process of the insecurity that we face in this country, and we cannot go to court. So one of the areas that I want us to consider very strong is to begin to look at how we can call government to account by reason of the duty placed on them to secure our lives, to secure our properties. Oh, you can't secure my property, but you say when anything is happening to my property, I have a right to property. So All of those incongruences that are in the Constitution, it's a function of law, and we are really gagged in respect of what we can do. Because of the provisions of the Constitution, we have to be law-abiding. Whatever we are going to do, we have to come within the ambit of the law. I think these are areas that we should consider very seriously, so that we can give meaning, we can give effect to all those rights that are provided to us under Chapter 4 of the Constitution. I've been screaming this. I will not mind screaming it again, and I thank you, because I thank God that my sister is here, my big brother is here, Professor Uchuku, and also my nephew is in this business. I think even if we have to use the family funds to push this, we have gotten the required number to do it. So I wish you all the best. Legislative intervention is the only way through which we can enjoy all the rights that God has given to us, which have been recognized, and in our system, we have to do better recognition so that we enjoy these rights better. I trust that arising from this meeting, meaningful conversations, discussions, and also resolutions will be reached that will help enrich the expression and the enjoyment of our rights in this country. I thank you so very much, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, sir. Who am I to violate your rights? When you stepped in, I got excitedly confused because you're so busy that it's difficult for you to attend events. So I was asking myself, is this the NBA president? And that was what resulted to changing the Yakubu to you, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I'm so sorry. At this point, I would like to invite Honorable Philip Agese, Deputy Chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Media and Publicity, who is representing the Deputy Speaker, House of Representatives. Right, Honorable Benjamin Okeze-Kalu.
Thank you very much. The House Committee Chairman, Human Rights, Right Honorable Mark Shinde, Deputy Chairman of the House Committee, Honorable Atta, the Chairman of the Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission, Professor Salamatu Suleiman, the Executive Secretary, Professor Uchuku, our keynote speaker, Professor Kobaka Suleiman, will be represented by Professor Omorege, the President of the Nigeria Bar Association, and former Governing Council Chairman, the representative of the Sokoto Speaker, Sokoto State Assembly, Kebbi State Assembly. You're also welcome. Of course, the directors and staff of the National Human Rights Commission, our development partners with the Balance of Human Rights, you're also welcome. Gentlemen of the press, I stand this beautiful afternoon in the tradition of the Parliament to represent and deliver the address of His Excellency, the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, Right Honorable Benjamin Okeze-Kalu. Mr. Chairman, House Committee of Human Rights, I must sincerely apologize to you and this August gathering for arriving here very late. As you are all aware, at the moment we have very busy engagements dealing with the issue of budget in order to keep the nation running. So my chairman and host and the executive secretary, please, that apology that should be taken. I will go in the tradition of the Parliament to deliver strictly the speech as delivered to me by the person that I'm standing for. So, Mr. Chairman, this motion is carried. It is with immense honor and a deep sense of responsibility that I stand before you today at the inaugural This forum held in conjunction with the 2023 Human Rights Day, our collective journey towards a more just and accurately aware of the state of significant strides in enacting legislation and upholding international treaties. The reality is that many Nigerians continue to face violations of their fundamental rights, from poverty and access to basic services. The challenges we face are complex and require a multifaceted legislature becomes paramount. We, as lawmakers, have a moral and call to concrete action. We must leverage on our platforms and tools to enact laws that protect the vulnerable, empower the marginalized, and ensure justice for all. This forum serves as an invaluable platform for us to learn, share best practices, and build partnerships that will empower us to fulfill this obligation. By examining the state of human rights in Nigeria and exploring effective legislative mechanisms, we can identify gaps and develop innovative solutions to address them. Let us remember that the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy enshrined in our Constitution are not mere aspirations, but guiding principles for our actions. We must ensure that our legislative agenda prioritizes the realization of these principles, ensuring that every Nigerian enjoys the full spectrum of human rights. To achieve this, I propose the following actions. 1, addressing systematic discrimination. Our laws must explicitly address and dismantle systems of discrimination that perpetuate inequalities based on factors such as gender, ethnicity, religion, and disability. We need comprehensive legislation that guarantees equal opportunities and access to resources for all citizens. 2, strengthening access to justice. Many Nigerians lack access to legal representation and judicial systems that uphold their rights. We must invest in our legal aid services, increase public awareness of legal rights, and hold law enforcement agencies accountable for upholding the rule of law and protecting the vulnerable. Prioritizing economic and social rights. The realization of human rights is not possible without addressing the root causes of poverty and inequality. We must prioritize legislative measures that promote economic development, create decent jobs, and ensure access to quality healthcare, education, and social security for all. And lastly, empowering the civil society. The civil society plays a vital role in advocating for human rights and holding government accountable. We must therefore foster a conducive environment for civil society organizations to operate freely, ensuring their voices are heard and contributions valued. This forum is not just a gathering, but a starting point. Let us commit ourselves to living here with concrete steps and a renewed sense of urgency. Let us use our collective voices to advocate for human rights, engage in meaningful dialogue, and hold each and every one of us accountable. Together, let us build a Nigeria where human rights are not just words on paper, but a lived reality for every citizen. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with the kind permission of the chairman of the Governing Council, at this junction, I hereby wish to declare this event officially open.
Thank you so very much for that beautiful message. I have the honor to recognize the presence of Isa Sanusi, Country Director, Amnesty International. Thank you for joining us. I want to also recognize the presence of the representative of the Director General of NAPTIP, Nyoma Wokemba. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the opening session. We will pause for group photograph outside and then come back immediately to reconvene. Thank you.
Please, for the staff of the National Human Rights Commission, especially those who are lawyers, we will have a photograph with the national president of the Nigerian Bar Association. So you want to join, you can come now. There has been requests from some staff to take pictures with him. So we can do that now. This is his first time of visiting. Hey. You can watch it anytime.
Thank you very much. I would like to start on the existing protocols and deliver my goodwill to National Human Rights Commission, whose leadership is doing a lot, giving human rights a new position in our country. Let us give them a round of applause for the good work. At Amnesty International, even though we are a non-governmental organization, but we are also always willing to work with credible government institutions. And one of the credible government institutions that we always work with is the National Human Rights Commission. This time, gatherings are very important. Discussing the legislature and to make the laws that govern our lives. Effective is going to go a long way in changing a lot of things in this country. Once again, I thank you everyone, and I wish that we are going to have very useful discussions here, and I hope that this session and more to come will help in improving human rights in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to also invite Norma Wakemba, the representative of DG NAPTIP. Norma Wakemba. Okay, so while we await her arrival, let me invite Adwa Kufo, Senior Human Rights Advisor to the Resident Coordinator, Resident Humanitarian Coordinator, to give us a good message. Please, let's appreciate her.
Good morning. I am actually bringing a message on behalf of the UN Resident Coordinator, Humanitarian Coordinator, Mr. Mateus Shimale. He was supposed to be with us today, but had an emergency meeting in Lagos, so he had to leave this morning. And this is a statement he has prepared. I'm going to read it. And before I start, please, I also stand on existing protocol. Honorable members of Parliament, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, your focus on the role of the legislator in the promotion and realization of human rights is timely. Integration of human rights into governance is key to more effective laws and policies, and to inclusive, participatory, and sustainable development. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the 75th anniversary of which we are commemorating this week, provides an important blueprint. Human rights are the connecting thread that cuts across silos and across every sector, mirroring the full spectrum of national governance, clarifying priorities and helping to advance social and economic stability, inclusion, trust, and justice. They are also the most transversal prevention tool that we have. Every state has an interest in promoting a strong core of human rights at the center of policy and governance. Parliaments have a crucial role to play. They are key to upholding the rule of law, to safeguarding institutional independence, to conflict prevention, mediation, reconciliation, and peacemaking through constructive dialogue. They are also key in standard setting and in holding governments to account for the human rights impacts of policies, practices, and legislations. We know from experience that establishing standing parliamentary committee on human rights is particularly effective. And we heard the earlier chairperson of the Human Rights Committee. The UN in Nigeria appreciates the direct work and links between parliamentarians, civil society organizations, and the National Human Rights Commission. These links strengthen trust between people and the institutions and decision makers that serve them. They ensure that human rights developments and concerns are taken into account in legislative and oversight functions. More formally, parliaments are key to transforming recommendations made by the international and regional human rights bodies and mechanisms into practice at the national level, in particular through your legislative, budgetary, and oversight roles. The UN in Nigeria welcomes strengthening of parliamentarians' involvement in the work of the UN Human Rights Office and of the UN Human Rights Council, including, and most importantly for us, the Universal Periodic Review and the treaty bodies, also forming part of state delegations to the Human Rights Council and to help facilitate the implementation of the recommendations from the human rights treaty bodies. Thank you for listening, and I wish you fruitful discussions.
Thank you very much. That was Adua Akufo, the Human Rights Advisor to the UN Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator. I want to use this medium to say a very big thank you to the UN system for the wonderful support that they've given the Commission. We'll move quickly to the panel session, and the panel session is on Parliament and Human Rights, exploring traditional and emerging roles. The Executive Secretary of the Commission, Dr. Tony Ojukwu, OFR, SAN, will chair this panel, and we have the panelists here listed as Ms. Adua Akufo, Senior Human Rights Advisor, Office of the UN Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator. Let's put our hands together for our once again. And Ms. Chinonye Obiagu, SAN, I'm sure he's on his way. He's the Chair, MBA Human Rights Institute. So, sir, you have the floor. Thank you.
Let me stand on the existing protocols as well. Today is fast-paced and we have quite a number of programs today. I'm indeed delighted to make this presentation at what I call a capacity building program between the House Committee on Human Rights and the National Human Rights Commission. And this is specifically for parliamentarians, both from the states and national assembly. And it is not difficult to discover why there is this partnership between the Human Rights Committee of the Parliament and the Commission, because we all have the same objective of promoting the ideals of human rights, rule of law and democracy, and by extension, good governance. Whereas there are so many sides of partnerships and capacity necessary for parliamentarians to enable them conduct their legislative duties, I would like to dwell on the appropriate relationship between parliamentarians and national human rights institutions. Partnership between NHRIs and Parliament has been discussed in several fora. Some are worthy of mention, and I look at the 2018 Commonwealth, in partnership with the Permanent Mission of Australia and Fiji and to the UN, conducted a side event on the relationship between parliaments and national human rights institutions. It was held in the margins of the UN Forum on Human Rights, Democracy and Rule of Law in Geneva. Ambassador Nazhat Khan of Fiji, chairing the panel, exploring the positive impacts of effective cooperation between parliaments and the NHRI, said, this is a conversation which has great relevance to developing countries. And she further said, we are all supposed to be in the same boat when it comes to promoting values. Parliaments and national human rights institutions have a significant role to play in the recognition and enforcement of human rights. At that event, Honorable Kenneth Okot, a member of parliament from Kenya, speaking about Kenya's Parliamentary Human Rights Association, said, One of our biggest successes has been to partner with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. There's a lot to be done and there is a lot to be learned. But through partnership, I think we can ensure that our parliaments become effective advocates and champions on a consistent basis for human rights. And here in Nigeria, from 23rd to 26th of March 2004, representatives of the Commonwealth National Human Rights Institutions and Commonwealth Parliament met in Abuja and discussed ways to develop a constructive relationship between their respective institutions. At that meeting, it was recognized that both parliaments and national human rights institutions could make an invaluable contribution to the promotion and protection of human rights and in supporting the work of each other. It was agreed that parliaments should develop a special working relationship with national human rights institutions. The resulting document from this conference was called the Abuja Guidelines, which was agreed to form a suitable basis for developing an effective promotion and protection of human rights. Describing the role of parliaments and parliamentarians, the Abuja Guidelines urged parliaments and parliamentarians to produce an appropriate legal framework for the establishment of national human rights institutions in accordance with the Paris Principles and the Commonwealth best practices. Describing the role of National Human Rights Commissions, the Abuja Guidelines urged the National Human Rights Commission to provide parliamentarians with regular experts, independent advice on national, regional, and international human rights issues, instruments, and mechanisms. To provide ongoing training for parliamentarians on human rights principles. That has been overflown today by my friend from Katie. Advise parliamentarians on human rights implications of all proposed legislation and constitutional amendments, as well as existing laws. Inform parliamentarians on the research into human rights issues being undertaken, and hold regular human rights seminars and conferences with parliamentarians. The Abuja Guidelines also stated what parliaments and parliamentarians can do to support the work of national human rights institutions. And these are as follows. The parliament should produce an appropriate legislative framework for the establishment of human rights institutions in accordance with the Paris Principles and Commonwealth best practice principles. Parliament should have a sound knowledge of international human rights and international human rights instruments, as well as the work of national human rights institutions. National human rights institutions should organize periodic meetings to create awareness among parliamentarians on both human rights and the work of NHRI. Parliaments and NHRI should involve an effective working relationship to better promote and protect human rights. Each jurisdiction should develop an appropriate role for parliamentarians in the appointment and removal of human rights commissioners. The proposed budget of an NHRI should be submitted directly to Parliament for vetting and approval. Parliament should ensure that adequate resources and facilities are provided to a national human rights institution to enable it to perform its functions effectively. The Parliament should also ensure that resources are in fact made available to NHRI. The annual report of an NHRI should be sent to the Parliament promptly, and the annual reports and other reports of an NHRI should be debated in Parliament promptly, and government response to the report should also be tabled in Parliament promptly. An all-party parliamentary committee should have specific responsibility for overseeing and supporting the work of an NHRI, and in smaller states, this function might be undertaken by an existing parliamentary standing committee. Human rights commissioners should be invited to appear regularly before the appropriate parliamentary committee to discuss their annual reports and other reports. Parliament should invite human rights commissioners to meet with them regularly to discuss matters of mutual interest. Parliament should ensure that sufficient time is given to the consideration of the work of NHRI. Parliament should ensure that their constituents are made aware of the work of NHRI. Parliament should also scrutinize carefully any government proposals that might adversely affect the work of NHRI and seek use of the mandate of NHRI is to have any legislation that may affect the enjoyment of human rights in the country. Parliament should consider revising standing orders in order to enable them to develop a more effective relationship with national human rights institutions. The Parliament should ensure that recommendations for action from national human rights institutions are followed up and implemented. And under the Abuja guidelines, it was also proposed on what national human rights institutions can do to support the work of Parliament and parliamentarians, and it stipulated that human rights commissioners should obtain a thorough knowledge of the role, functions, and constraints of Parliament and parliamentarians. And human rights commissioners should brief Parliament on human rights issues regularly, and Parliament should meet with the National Human Rights Institution to discuss and agree on the timing of these briefings. Human rights commissioners should provide parliamentarians with regular experts in the human rights issues, instruments, and mechanisms. And national human rights institutions should be under statutory obligation to submit annual reports both on this work and the state of human rights in the country to Parliament. There should be statutory obligation on an NHRI to submit a special report on any human rights violation in the country that require urgent attention from Parliament. And such reports must be tabled and debated in Parliament, and government should respond within a stipulated period. The NHRI should provide ongoing training for parliamentarians on human rights principles, and the NHRI should advise parliamentarians on human rights implications of all proposed legislation and constitutional amendments, as well as existing laws. Human rights commissioners should inform Parliament on the research into human rights issues being undertaken by NHRI, and NHRI should hold regular human rights seminars and conferences with parliamentarians. And human rights should keep parliaments informed with this international and Parliament regarding the law. And NHRI should advise Parliament on the creation of human rights committees in Parliament. National human rights institutions can involve parliamentarians, and where appropriate, national human rights institutions can encourage Parliament to contribute to the lives of Parliament. Dear honorable members, you can agree with me that both suggestions are well thought out guidelines that will nourish a healthy relationship between national human rights institutions and the Parliament. I commend them to our good selves, and I wish to commend the existing relationship between the Commission and National Assembly Committees on Human Rights. We hope that after this event, we can also forge a formidable relationship with all our 36 state houses or assembly committees on human rights. I want to use this opportunity to thank the National Assembly Committee on Human Rights, especially our co-host, the chairperson of the Human Rights Committee of the House of Representatives, Dr. Makinde, and as well as the speakers, represented Speaker of Baby State, who is represented here today, and other members of State House of Assembly who have deemed it necessary to attend this very important capacity building meeting. I also want to use this opportunity to thank our collaborators, our national agencies that have come here today, that have come here, civil society groups, Amnesty International, and also members of the media and our friends all over the country who have come to participate in this event. We use the opportunity to invite you to the events we are going to have. Later today at the Brazilian Embassy, we are going to have a film festival by 4 p.m. We have dialogue with the military this afternoon. We'll have dialogue with strictly on invitation. And tomorrow, Saturday, we are going to have a walk, a human rights walk from Square, the premises here, just about an hour walk, as part of the taking messages from the United Nations Secretary General, the High Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, other agencies, if the House Committee will be willing to make a statement, and other to make statements to Nigerians on International Human Rights Day. They'll all be accommodated. And after that event, of course, we shall have a human rights fiesta. The human rights fiesta is celebrating human rights in our own Nigerian way, through music, dancing, enjoyment, barbecue, and so on and so forth. I want to thank all for listening.
Thank you very much, sir, for that elaborate presentation. It deserves another round of applause, please. Thank you. So I would like to use the floor now to Ajwa.
Thank you, and thank you so much again, standing on the existing protocol. And I don't think there's much to add after our executive secretary statement, which I believe was comprehensive and covered many of the elements that I was going to speak to. Just to summarize, or perhaps just to repeat some of the things he said, and also in the earlier statement that I read on behalf of our resident and humanitarian coordinator, which is really to emphasize, of course, that Parliament are the cornerstone of the national human rights protection system. And being a cornerstone, and in order for them to be able to really use their role, or to make an impact with their role, both the parliamentarians and also their staff need to have of course, the adequate standing of the international human rights legal framework. So we support, again, to add the capacity of parliamentarians, but not only the national human rights, not only the parliament, not only the Committee on Human Rights, but other committees to understand how the human rights framework applies to them. So we include the committee, for example, on women, also the committees on health, on reconciliation, that all these committees should also be versed in the human rights framework, both the national, the regional, and international, and how that also applies to their work as an oversight body. And we also, of course, talked about, in addition to having a capacity training, which the UN in Nigeria stands ready to support in taking this forward. And not only the resident coordinators office, but we also have other UN agencies, funds and agencies who are looking to see how they can support the Parliament in a more comprehensive approach. And on that, I believe UNDP is already involved in assessing how the new Parliament, what support would look like. A large component of that for us is looking at human rights. So there is a consultant who is going to be working with the Parliament, and I think it's already started the work, having discussions with the Parliament on what a comprehensive UN support would look like. Among those I've mentioned the issue of training for other committees, but also you look at how you can support the domestication of many of the human rights treaties that Nigeria is state party to, and also how to encourage adoption and ratification of certain laws that are, again, in line with Nigeria's obligations. With the oversight, looking at also how budgeting can enforce human rights policies, and look where they're from. As they say, you follow the money, so also the committee's role in that. These are some of the examples that we are looking at, but it's really just to share with you that there is a comprehensive discussion and a comprehensive package being developed in a holistic and comprehensive manner, and of which the Human Rights Committee is a priority for us. So I'll end here. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dua Kufuor. Yes, waiting for Mr. Odia, the chairperson. We can open floor for discussion now. Discussion, please. Questions, comments? Okay.
My name is Abdul Rahman Aize Yakubu. I want to start by commending the National Human Rights Commission for bringing this forum and for giving it speech to deepen the relationship between the Commission and the Parliament, both at federal and subnational level. There's no doubt that the Nigerian Parliament, particularly at the federal level, have done a lot of work with respect to the promotion and protection of human rights since 1999. But I'm very glad with the intervention of the UN representatives and also with the information made by the Secretary, which goes to the fact that we need to have a methodical framework for partnership between the Commission and the Parliament at the federal and also at sub-national level. Now, having said that, I also want to reiterate on the issue of the capacity development of members of the Parliament. And I hope that the UN will be looking at training of parliamentarians on right-based approach to policies and oversight functions in terms of ensuring that the executive and people also the judiciary, they understand the principles of right-based approach in policy initiation and implementation. And I hope that the National Human Rights Commission will also take very important role in working for this comprehensive framework of ensuring that our parliaments understand their role in terms of promoting and protecting human rights. Then I have two questions. One for the chairman of the House Committee of Human Rights, and the other one for our keynote speaker. Please, Mr. Chairman, can you please enlighten us on the efforts by the National Assembly women
Having out one which is to eradicate a law. So this
for many years, women have been advocating for more seats in the House. As you can see right now, you can see that extra seats are already, we have many more women coming in. At the same time, when it comes to the extra seat or having a specific seat for women, that is in progress. Because right now, we cannot be able to say, oh, this seat to this specifically for women. However, in terms of the numbers of women that should be in committees and chairman of committees, we have a lot that the House have considered. So in the principal level of all committees, you will see women taking chairmanship role. Unlike before, where you have chairman of committees that are predominantly male. But today we have, for example, the chairman of committee on NDDC. And that's a very, very extremely powerful committee. But we have to count 1 to 5. NDDC sits on a budget of about 300 and something billion. And it's not, I mean, the chairman of that committee. So we are trying our best to make sure that the gender equality is
something that, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me answer the question. I get it, when you ask me about the effectiveness of the power oversight. Now I can explain it in the book. I think if you go about that, what you was we know, basic knowledge, basic knowledge. So what's that with the whole, wow, let's go to oversee executive action. General, but more specifically, we operate in constitutional democracy, and that's why it's whether in the constitution. In 1988 of the constitution, the National Assembly has power was founded on that provision. And for me, the provision is quite limited. In that it only allows the National Assembly to carry out investigation, or carry out oversight, so to speak, with respect to try to make law or to expose corruption. You know, so it's quite narrow, last week. But nonetheless, there's a way by which the National Assembly has tried to be effective in carrying out oversight. This is respect to matters of body or human rights. And that is to insert what we describe as an reporting mechanism. Is that even as far as conferred on bodies such as this commission, there is a requirement that the commission should report on such things. Last time, you will track the extent to which the commission is carrying out its mandate with respect to human rights. We also have the new violence against the Islam, which also makes provision there for some form of reporting mechanism. But then National Assembly can also track whether indeed the act is meant to avoid several episodes of violence and so on. And of course, we prosecute those who are involved. So to that extent, the National Assembly has carried out this using its power of lawmaking to establish itself or establish mechanism for oversight. But whether the National Assembly has been effective in actually implementing those provisions is a different ballgame entirely. It's not an indictment of anybody. But to say that the National Assembly is required to operate not only by itself, but as activated by the people. That's where forum like this is important. So that attention can be drawn. And somebody talked about training just need to, constantly create the capacity of the National Assembly members as well. Because as I mentioned when I was discussing the issue of challenge, National Assembly has serious problem of attrition. Many persons who were members of National Assembly in National Assembly are no longer there. And so you have a situation where new persons are coming in and they do not have full breadth of historical institutional memory that you expect. So those challenges are there. But nevertheless, we continue to push for more training so that they can be more effective. But that's the second ambit of your question, is that how do you strengthen the power oversight? For me, I refer to it like there is need for post-legislative scrutiny of many of the laws that have to do with human rights. We are not doing that at all. I will tell you. Which is that we have to have a deliberate mechanism in the system by which we will begin to audit all those laws, provisions there, and to see whether they are being enforced effectively. And that, of course, includes, for instance, the Police Act, which was passed in 2020. Police Act is a really shift from the old Police Act, because there you now have a situation where the police is expected to comply with human rights standards. So when you are talking of oversight, the police must be subject to a lot of tracking in terms where it's indeed complying with those standards as well. So a lot of things can be done. It's a wide spectrum of activities. That's why this collaboration was, like I suggested earlier, will be sustained. Not the one-off. Was continue to remind ourselves and engage these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for your response. Okay. All right. Very short and brief, please.
Sorry, you mentioned the Violence Against Persons Act, so I felt the need to say something because NAPTIP is the administrator of the act, so he implements the act and he provides for an annual VAP report where we list everything we have done. We are actively, without a budget, I must say, for that, we are actively involved in investigating and prosecuting cases. I don't have the exact figures here, but we have had so many convictions under that act. And every year we diligently present our annual reports to the public, where we list out everything we have done, all the figures and how many we've investigated, prosecuted, convictions, and all that. So we are on top of this. I just wanted to say.
That's the last one. Thank you. The very last contribution.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gerald Kachi from the Initiative Against Human Rights Abuse and Torture in our rights. I want to stand on the existing protocols. My contribution is in form of question, and it is directed to the chairman of the education and the member of the Federal Representative Chairman of Human Rights Committee. And the questions are, recently we have issue with police brutality that led to, killing of Nigerian youths, and it caused a lot of issues in this country. And today we are having a different extrajudicial killings from the side of the military. From March 2014 to December 12, 2023, we have had close to 500 unprovoked killings by the military. What are the National Assembly doing to checkmate and possibly put a stop to these unwarranted killings? And what punishments have been meted out to those who did this in the past and those that are continuing that path? Then finally, for my question, some of us in the civil society group have been able to get judgments against the Nigerian police force. And all this while we have been struggling to enforce these judgments. What can the assembly do to help and see that when issues of rights are being violated and maybe are taken to our courts and maybe judgments are gotten, how can we possibly get justice in that regard? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the last question, and we take the last response, and then we're done. Oh, let me welcome to the room. Mr. Chinonye Obiagweze, we've been waiting for you. Welcome, sir. Please let's welcome him.
Right, but this meeting will be so up the Chinonye was not here. It's been a strong partnership with the Human Rights of the APA. The APA president himself was there, he's not left. So that's why probably have to cover him somewhere. You're welcome. On the questions about police brutality, including, of course, this is something of terrible concern to all of us who are involved in the human rights work. And honestly, something has to be done because there's no way we can go like this. It's not possible. I was just discussing with the chairman of the House Committee of Human Rights. The House Committee the parliament as a whole have summoned the service chiefs and instructed a committee from them that they will do everything they can to put a stop to all this. However, we still see the thing happening every day. Now, what I can say is there's a promise by the security chiefs that they will do all they can. Make sure that these kind of killings are reduced to very minimum. However, we have done the right thing. We want to put them on their toes by continuing to ask questions like they are asking. So that it's not a question of the promise that they go and start sleeping. Let them know we're holding on to them on the promise they have made to restore law and order. Make sure that the country is secure for all of us. Because like the Vice President was speaking today, it makes no sense of your right to life, your right to dignity. You don't have right to security. So security it says directly principles of are not impossible. If my right to life is impossible and my right to life, I think I can go to court and lead the court because all my right to life are so your concern is the concern of everybody, and the issues are confronting all of us. The system is and believe that authorities are necessary. We are not going to give no for an answer this time around. The National Assembly has promised to do their work with the agencies, the police, the military. They've had discussions for that. And they have been appropriated for based on the taxpayers' money. So if we have done our own bit, then they have to excuse not to do their own part of the work. Let's believe they are going to be right thing. And let's hope that before long we will hear a new tone on the security situation in the country. Is there any other thing we have left out? The judgment. The judgments we are proposing to have some dialogue with the judiciary and some of the issues exactly. Including the parliament on what we can do about the commission is like, you know, when we give awards during the EndSARS panel, and that's how it should be shown. Last, end of this week, a lawyer came here and said, it's all in life of practice as a human rights lawyer. And the first time he got an award paid was in the panel established by the position. That all the cases the world in court, so they gave human rights judgments and awards. Never got remission. Never got paid in any of them. Because only the panel set up by the commission. So that was the first time. As far as concerned, there was only human rights because that was one. So everybody found out that. But I think the point is, human rights commission was able to do that because money was appropriated for it. The speaker then gave us money, and then the government also gave us some money. So it was possible for us to pay. If we didn't have the money, we aren't going to be able to pay. So it all also boils down on the kind of appropriations we raise. If the National Assembly does not appropriate money to Human Rights Commission to pay compensation for violations like this, that's no way we can pay. So it all boils down to appropriate budget. Because the National Human Rights Commission goes into Parliament for its budget, doesn't go to the executives because they're independent body. So the executive doesn't ask us anything, they just give us what they call an independent. So that is enough for you to understand your business. But once the Parliament will be able to tell them exactly these are the things we need to do to make sure that human rights well promoted and protected in the country. So if the parliament cannot come to our help, then we are on our own. You know, somebody release the law to the parliament that they make. And we want to make that point so that the honorable member will have that at the back of comment. And the house will bring this release so that we can. I want to thank everybody for the the next thing now, I'll be handing over to so that I'll tell you that
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. You see, the National Human Rights Commission has a special way of appreciating special people for providing special support for us. The ES has asked me to continue, and I'm also going to ask him to lead the process in appreciating the special people. He has special souvenirs already duly signed that will be presented to these special people by the chairperson, Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission. And I'd like to call them individually as I have them on my list here. If they want to make a special presentation, down here. May I humbly invite Honorable Dr. Abiola Peter Makinde, Chairman, House Committee on Human Rights, for his souvenir. Please let's put our hands together for him. Thank you very much, sir, for your support. The National Human Rights Commission does not take this for granted. Thank you, sir. As he makes his way back, I want to invite Professor sorry. As he makes his way back to his seat, I want to invite Professor Ejoba Omorage SAN, Director of Legislative Support Services, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. Please let's give him a resounding round of applause. It's not easy to be a professor. Thank you so very much for your support. I want to also invite Ms. Adua Kufo, a very, very strong partner with the UN system. Thank you so very much for your support, Adua. Human Rights Advisor, the UN Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator. As she makes her way back to her seat, I want to invite Honorable Farouk Abubakar Esquire, Chair, Kebbi State House Committee on Justice and Judiciary. Thank you very much for your wonderful support. Thank you also very much for your support. That is all, sir. Yes, sir. That's all I have on my list. Yes, thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you. I'd like now to invite Mr. Hilary Obona, Senior Human Rights Advisor to the Executive Secretary, to make the presentation on the draft advisory on the role of Parliament in advancing human rights.
Her Excellency, Madam Chairperson, the Chairman of the House Committee on Human Rights, the DG of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, ably represented by the learned Steele, representative of the Speaker of the Kebbi State House of Assembly, and Chair of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, Ajo Akufo, Senior Human Rights Advisor to the Resident Coordinator and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our stay here, but we are about also to perform a very important function of the National Human Rights Commission. And this function is a mandate that the Commission holds very dear, the power to issue advisory and guidelines. Though they may be soft laws, but once they are approved by the governing council of this great institution, they become binding on all persons who it is addressed to. And in this case, we are very honored to be addressing this advisory to the legislature at the national and the state level. We do this with great pride because we already have established a reputation of good collaboration with both the national and the state assemblies. And it is exemplified by this event today. We want to thank the Honorable Chairman, and we want to thank all his staff, and we want to thank the Kebbi State House of Assembly and all that have supported this event. Not also forgetting Madam Chairperson, under whose authority this advisory will be issued finally. I would just want to say that we have already distributed draft copies. This is one of those advisories that we don't just want to issue as a commission. We want to consult the end users. There are advisories that we issue from the 5th floor and it goes straight to the society. But right now we have a draft advisory because of the recognition of the roles in section 4, which is the legislative powers of both the national and the state assemblies. We thought it fit that we develop this advisory together with this eminent arm of government. And so it is my honor and privilege to share with you this advisory. It's 6 pages for now as a draft. And we hope that it is not too long so that the honorable and distinguished members of the state and the national assemblies would easily relate to it. We have a 1.5 page preamble that speaks to previous and current commitments of parliaments all over the world to advance good governance, human rights, and development. I wouldn't go reading so that I don't bore and delay your good selves, but I would just want to state here that this preamble acknowledges the roles of the parliament as an architect and custodian of democracy in ensuring the enactment of laws that will safeguard and enhance the fundamental human rights of citizens, as well as strengthen the protection of human rights through the effective use of parliamentary tools. And in the body of the advisory, we went further to enumerate some of these parliamentary tools. And I am sure we will still add more. However, I will have the honor of also reading out to you that this advisory is made under the powers of the National Human Rights Commission in section 5, paragraphs D, O, and R of the National Human Rights Commission Amendment Act of 2010. In line with the mood of the global human rights fraternity, as we mark the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration, this advisory is issued with recognition of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which proclaimed itself as a common standard for achievement of all peoples and all nations. Mr. Chairman, we went further to enumerate the roles of the legislature in not only advancing human rights and democracy in the body of the advisory, we have further stated some of these roles, which include lawmaking, that is traditional one. We have also included oversight, so which goes beyond the Committee on Human Rights to other line committees, especially in the realm of civil and political rights, security, and human development. Again, we have enumerated some legislative tools in addition to functions that would be used to recognize to achieve this. We didn't stop at mandating parliaments. We also recognize that civil society has important role to play. Yesterday, we celebrated civil society here. We also recognize that the National Human Rights Commission also has a role to play in supporting parliament. And speakers after speakers have made mention of capacity building, research, and also a lot of partnership. We also noted the role of corruption in mitigating the enjoyment of human rights. And then we listed how parliaments can achieve economic, social, and cultural rights, as well as civil and political rights. It is on this note that I recommend this advisory to you, and we call on your comments. We will still reach out to each and every one of you as individual parliaments or parliamentarians to get your insight as we finalize this. And I hope that in the next sitting of the Governing Council of this great institution, it will be presented for the approval. Mr. Chairman, won't be telling me that I move any motion, but I recommend this advice to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Mr. Ogbonna. We are almost to the end of the road, but we will not get to the end of the road without somebody appreciating us for what we've been doing since morning. On this note, I'd like to call Commissioner Azubike Wakenta, Member Governing Council, National Human Rights Commission, representing the Nigeria Bar Association, to give us a vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Patty. The chairperson and the executive secretary of the National Human Rights Commission, I am abundantly happy to do the vote of thanks in this forum of the legislature on human rights. First of all, I want to recognize the important. I will start with our own, the House Committee on Human Rights. Honorable Peter, you are on because we are in this together, and we appreciate your availability, and we hope that you will help us get it right within your tenure as a member of the House of Reps. Also, I want to thank you because you are part of the host, because this is a joint program between the National Human Rights Commission and the House of Representatives Committee, of which you head. So I am performing due duty on behalf of all of us. So I want to thank every person that is here, individual and organization. We thank you for the time you have provided an added value to this particular inaugural forum of the legislature on human rights. The only thing I will advocate on the honorable member is for him to always realize that the parliament is the traditional guardian of human rights. The flag that was given to you, the UDHR, you are the custodian of it. So you give life, which you have started giving life to it. You have specific legislations in Nigeria, police acts, on free education. There are plenty of them touching on chapter 2. We are still encouraging the parliament with the House of Assembly to give more specific value and life to chapter 2. You are doing well. We encourage you. Do more by relaxing section 666. Do more.
do a little more, relax it a little, and make the chapter 2 to become easily enforceable. We know there are laws, free education, free compulsory education, even the treatment of those with gunshot injury without requesting for extra. These are steps that you have taken to make us realize chapter 2. You can still do more. We are the batteries in the human rights world asking you to do more. We thank everybody that has come to this occasion. And we'll say as we move forward in enforcing and promoting Human Rights Commission, we encourage the Parliament to also help the National Human Rights Commission to realize the amendment of the recent act to promote, protect, and enforce human rights is burdensome. It's all inclusive. If we make promotion, it's not even easy. Teaching, education, it's not easy. So we need more finance for the Commission to help us to reach the unreached. Thank you very much for listening, and may God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barrister Wakenta. With that, again, we have come to the end of this morning that dovetailed into afternoon event. We have another event in the afternoon from 2 o'clock, immediately after this one. We want to wish you a very, very wonderful afternoon and evening. The ES told you earlier that we'll have a film festival going at the Embassy of Brazil. You are welcome to our film festival. And tomorrow you are also welcome to the human rights awareness walk. The awareness walk will actually commence from Eagle Square and terminate at the headquarters of the National Human Rights Commission. Personalities, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. You can grab your lunch as you step out of the hall. Thank you.
No need a second.